Buying and selling in real estate. We are joined by Julian Johnston. He's a Miami Beach realtor with the Kokorin Group. Thanks for joining us. And I imagine you have some pretty nice luxury beach getaways over there in Florida. Let me start with this. Today's Case-Shiller report showed that the prices, they're not declining, they're just going up less. So if I'm a seller of homes, how do I read that?
Well, the Case-Shiller index is also a lag in the market. So some of those sales that they're recording occurred 60 to 90 days ago. So we're starting to see a slowdown in the growth, which I think if we fast forward a couple of months is going to retract even further, especially as sales volume is declining across most of the markets in Los Angeles, New York, and Miami. Those primary markets are definitely seeing a lot of slowdown in sales volume as interest rates increase.
Now, we've seen some of these prices on homes. You know, when the pandemic first started, people were fleeing places like New York City. There was a ghost town. They were leaving Washington, D.C. They were going to Florida. They were going to Texas. They were going to either sunnier or bigger places where they, I suppose, had more space. Are those places that went up the most likely at risk for coming potentially down in price the most?
Well, there's definitely when COVID first hit, we were getting calls in some of the sunnier regions which were less affected by COVID. And we had clients that had, say, a 4,000 square foot apartment and they're trying to homeschool their kids and also do Zoom calls for work, and they needed more space. So the initial drive was rentals that happened 3 to 6 months because we didn't know what we didn't know. And then as COVID settled in, the sales volume really picked up because people saw themselves living in different cities. There was a different trend towards Palm Beach, and Miami had a huge influx of New Yorkers. And after 6 months, some of the companies that moved staff here, they were doing polls amongst the staff and seeing who wanted to go back to the Northeast. And a lot of those people said, no, they didn't want to move back at all. The lifestyle had changed, the kids were in school. I think that a lot of them have become accustomed to living here and their kids are in school and they're not going back. So I don't think we're going to see prices decrease too much at all in those areas.
I have a friend of mine in the San Diego area that's selling 2 homes. One's approximately $3 million and one's a little over $2.5 million. And we've had conversations that he's missed the peak, he's missed his peak selling season, and he's worried that, you know, he's not going to be able to have multiple bidders on his houses. What would your advice be to sellers who are looking to sell, but, you know, obviously they want the highest price they can get, right?
Correct. I mean, they do. The sellers, they had a bit of it was a seller's market, obviously, over the last 18 months, and a little bit of frenzy amongst buyers that were competing with investors as well. So if a property was worth, as in the case of your friend, say $3 million, they might price it at a premium 3.4, 3.5, wait for the market to rise, see what kind of offers, get multiple bids. They might even get bids above asking. That frenzy has disappeared. Now the buyers are sitting back and the market has leveled off. We're seeing like a curvature in the market. It's a crystal ball question where it's going to go. I don't think it's going to drop too much. We're not seeing the same sort of like crisis over debt that we had in 2007 or the drop in correction in 2015 when we had oil prices affecting some markets. But I'd say sellers really now need to price it to market. So if they know it's worth 3, you price it right above market at 3.1. You stay aggressive on your negotiation. And buyers are still buying because inherently they're moving or they have changes in their life where they need to move, but
right.
Also they still want to secure a mortgage before rates go up any higher.
The bull case for housing is there isn't enough homes for first-time home buyers. There's just not enough inventory out there. I've heard that argument before. But at the same time, with mortgage rates now going from 2.5 to 5 plus, which is where we're at, I mean, it's almost a double. That makes it extremely expensive for anybody looking to purchase a home. I mean, they're going to get priced out.
Well, it's a bit of a sting when you suddenly were getting quotes on a mortgage at 3.4%, 3.5, now it's at 5.2. Historically, since the 1940s, rates have never been that low, and I don't think we could expect them to stay that low, especially with inflation. But I think rates back in 2017, 2018 were around the same price point, and the people were getting the same kind of quotes for their mortgages. So now, after 6 months, they'll seem more normal. It'll definitely slow down the housing market, and as more properties become available, people will be able to still buy and still get a relatively affordable mortgage.
So here's the, I guess, $1 million question for you. If you were a buyer in the market to look for an investment property or a home to live in, Give me a couple cities where you think that things are still reasonable and you can get a good deal and you've got good schools and it's still a good environment where things haven't gotten so crazy, perhaps.
I mean, there's definitely some peripheral areas outside of Los Angeles and also outside of Miami and Delray, some of the peripheral areas that have good schools and have seen significant price increases over the last 18 months, but they still have, there's some more affordability in those peripheral areas. I think there's going to be some cities like Miami of course, is going to see a continued influx of people moving out of the Northeast because people are still coming here for tax reasons as well. And that's a movement of the financial industry that was highlighted by Citadel last week. But if I was a buyer, I'd be looking at the market and saying, you know what, I think prices are cooling off a bit. I'm not going to get too aggressive unless I find the right deal and exactly the right house. I'm just going to sit and watch for a while. But when I do find the right house, I'm going to act and buy it right away.
All right. It sounds like patience is the key word there. Jillian Johnston joining us. Thank you so much. Our, I guess, in-house real estate agent helping us find